Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about something that's actually the beginning of a new series I'd like to do on common chord substitutions for improvisation. These can also be for comping, but we're going to use it from a single note melodic improvisation standpoint. We could start with a number of things for this series. Tritone substitution would be a very common one to start with. However, a few videos back we were already talking about that, and way back at the beginning of the common chord progression videos, I was talking about the minor 4 chord because it's just so common as a device to take us back to the 1 chord or the 3 chord. And I'd like to start with that to talk about as a substitution over the 5 chord. So this is all going to be presented as in a very simple way. You can take this as far as you want, and it can get quite advanced depending on how you use it, but I'm hoping that everybody can take a little something away from this as they're learning how to use substitutions, or maybe just supplementing what they already know about substitutions. And it's also going to be as practical as possible, applying it to the neck for us. So we're going to do this in C major, practice it in all 12 keys though, and it's going to be over a 2, 5, 1, and then 6 if we need the 4th measure. I don't know if I'll get into the 4th measure of this progression, but the substitution is over the 5 chord. So quick recap, we've already talked about the minor 4 chord. Normally the 4 chord is major, so if we have a normal diatonic chord scale in C major, we'd have 1 chord major, 2 chord minor, 3 chord minor, 4 chord major. However, so that would be F major 7. And just so you know, use any voicings you'd like when you're practicing. I'm always trying to stay with really basic chord voicings that I think people are learning, at the beginning of their jazz guitar journey, education, or whatever, because I want everybody to kind of be able to see what chords I'm using on the neck. So don't let that mean anything like you can't use more complicated chord voicings or whatever you're currently working on. Just do whatever for the voicings. So the 4 chord's normally major. However, if it's minor, then it's usually functioning to take us back to the 1 chord. So F minor 7 would take us back to 1 or back to 3. Both of those functioning in the same way, the 1 chord and a 3 chord being interchangeable. Sometimes, just before we move on to the actual substitution, the 4 chord, minor 4 chord, will be followed by the flat 7, creating the sound of a 2-5 that doesn't resolve to its 1. It resolves to the 1 of the original key. So in terms of the function, it's still taking you back to the 1 chord, the original key, C major in this case, but it's setting you up for a cadence that's just a little more tension than you would get with a normal 5-1, because that's what we're getting. That's not because, but I don't want to get too far into that. We've already talked about this in the past. So let's talk about substituting this. Prerequisite here, you're going to have to be able to play some basic line over a 2-5-1, more specifically over the 2. So we're going to take some line and play it over the 2 chord, make sure it fits into one measure of just the 2 chord. So don't let your line for now extend into the 2nd measure. So let's start with a pattern that I like using here, a lot of other people use, and I think is extremely useful for practice, but will also serve you well in actual performance settings. So we're going to go the scale degrees here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 2, 1. 3 is flat 3 in this case as well, because it's minor. So what we're going to do is play, this fits just right into that measure of the 2 chord. So if we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So what I did there is I took the exact same thing that I played over the 2 chord and I moved up 3 frets. 1, 2, 3 frets. As is tradition, getting a battery warning during a video, of course. All right, sorry, let me do that again. So we ended here, up up 3 frets, 1, 2, 3, play the same line, and then resolve it. Wherever you end up will be 1 fret or 2 frets away from a note that's consonant with the 1 chord, or in other words, a note that fits in with the 1 chord. You can resolve it to a dissonant note if you'd like to. For example, let's see, sharp 11 like that, for example. But try at first to resolve it to a consonant note so that your default, or the notes that you know are available to you within the chord, are close to the scale degrees of the minor 4 chord. From here, this is just an F minor 7 arpeggio. Each one of these will be, like I said, a whole step or a half step, 1 fret or 2 frets away from a note that's consonant with the 1 chord. So if we ended on the root F, the root of the minor 4 chord, that wants to resolve back to the 3rd of the 1 chord. The 3rd of the minor 4 chord likes to resolve back to the 5th. Or up to the 6th or 13th. I'm just realizing my intonation's a little off. I just changed strings back to flat wounds after, I don't know, 2 years of round wounds. I have these periods going back and forth between string types, so I didn't set my intonation, so I apologize for the tuning up here. So the 5th of the minor 4 chord likes to resolve back to the 7th or just stay where it is. So if we have that's back to the 7th, or it's already on the root when we go back there. Hey, Mai. And then the 7th, lastly, likes to go up to the 3rd. Or it doesn't have to just be chord tones as consonant notes. It could go to the 9th. So yeah, so that's the first step with this. The second step, which is optional but recommended if you can, is to try to do the same thing but not moving up 3 frets and staying in position. So for example, so that phrase, up 3 frets, exact same notes, but now I don't have to move up 3 frets and I can just stay within the position. That one I do have to shift up if I want that high note anyway, but you get the idea that whatever you play down here, you're just moving within position and altering the notes rather than moving the 3 frets. That's not to say the 3 fret up thing is bad. That's something you can always do unless you're so high up that it isn't possible. So spend time, doing that. I might have a cat visiting us here in a second on my shoulder. So the 3 frets thing is not a crutch or anything like that. It's just good to know how to move around the neck and also across the neck. And it's harder to move across the neck because you have to know what you're playing in position. So do it if you can. It's useful if you can do it. Let's talk about one last thing. So anything you play over the 2, you would play the exact same thing up a minor 3rd, in other words, by up 3 frets. There's the kitty. So lastly, I just wanted to talk about what these notes are if we're comparing them to the 5 chord. And I'm going to need my leg here. You want to come up on my shoulder? I have a freeze pedal here. It'll loop a note over and over again. And I'm just going to have it loop G as the root of our 5 chord, right? So if we have, hopefully you can hear that, it's just a G ringing out. So if I play the notes over the minor 4 chord, I just want to tell you how they, there we go. I just want to tell you how they relate back to the 5 chord. So the root of the minor 4 chord, that's the 7th of the 5 chord. Right? The 3rd of the minor 4 chord, the flat 3rd, is the flat 9. fifth of the minor 4 chord is the 11th or 4th of the 5 chord, and the 7th of the minor 4 chord is the sharp 5th. So it gives you an altered dominant sound when you do this. You don't have to just do, as we saw before, you don't just have to do arpeggio notes, right? So if I include the 6th, for example, of the minor 4 chord, now that's a consonant note within the 5 chord. So just mess around if you can, if you have some way to loop the note G, that can be useful so that you can hear how it relates to the 5 chord. And if you don't, then maybe you could just record yourself for 5 minutes going like this on your phone or something. I think you can do it like this, root 3rd and 7th, or root 7th and 3rd in the order I'm playing them here. But the thing is that at first, for students, I think it's a little more valuable to just do it with the root, because you really hear how all of the notes in the substitution relate to the root of the 5th chord. The color notes will give you more attention with the notes in the substitution. So for example, if I start playing these now, that one's fine. This is definitely more dissonant when we hear all the notes in the 5 chord ringing out, right? What was I playing? The 11th even is a little bit crunchy because we have the 3rd down here. And the sharp 5th down here, there's the natural 5th if I let this chord ring out. So you just get more dissonance, and it's valuable to know how those dissonances sound, but at the same time, while you're learning it, relating it back to the root is easier for our ears to identify what's going on when we're not used to those sounds. So yeah, that's what I would recommend there. So I hope this is valuable to you guys. I hope that you will stick around with me for future videos of substitutions over common progressions. If you have any questions about it, let me know. If you have any requests for videos using certain substitutions, let me know. If you like this content, please subscribe. I always appreciate seeing like new subscriber on there, because it means somebody's probably learning something, which is the point of this. And I hope you have a great time practicing it. Keep in touch and have a great day or evening wherever you are. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.